USC, Michigan. Awesome football game. USC got punched in the mouth early. Michigan looked like, hey, man, we got Orgy at quarterback. Our mentality is now flipped to we're back to physical style of football. We're going to pound it down you. And the whole mindset of the football team just looked different. And they dominated the first half. USC comes scrapping back in the second half, makes it a ball game. And Michigan goes down there and gets a big run and ends up winning it late there in Ann Arbor. Let's start with Michigan first. How big and important was this one for them to not completely fall off the face of the earth after winning a national championship last year?
Oh, I think it was huge. I think it was huge because, I mean, if they lose that game, Aaron, they're looking at the Oregon game and the Ohio State game, and you're like, all right, if we won't even have a chance to sniff the playoff, like we gotta go 2-0 here. We gotta go 2-0 against these two. And at this point, like you probably still would like to go 2-0 in that stretch. It's never okay to lose to Ohio State, as we know, with that rivalry. But I mean, a 10-2 Michigan team, if they can find their way in, like or find their way to that record, like they're in the dance, is my opinion when it comes to how tough the Big Ten is. But I mean, I'd have to imagine too, from a confidence perspective, to know that we can roll out there, throw for 32 yards, and still find a way to win the football game against one of the best offensive minds in college. Like, what? I mean, at that point, you're just like, we are titanium. We are invincible with that game plan. If they have that on the ground, now granted, USC is probably not going to be quite up to par with what they see against Oregon and Ohio State, but just to win a game in that kind of fashion, it was the most Michigan-esque of Michigans that we've seen to this point in 2024.
And defensively, real quick, that was the defensive line that I've been expecting all season. Like that was for like to me the first time we were like, okay, Michigan lost all this talent on the football team a year ago. They lost their quarterback and offensive line and guys on all three levels on the defense, but they still got really good dudes up front. Like this defense line is still pretty damn talented. Like go play NCAA football, go play EA Sports. Like that D line is nasty. And Texas whooped them up. I mean, and credit to Texas too. A couple weeks ago, like that is, right now looks like the best offense line in all of college football. The way that they've played through the first part of this football season, but for Michigan to literally knock the crap out of Miller Moss, I felt like every time Miller Moss took a drop, JD, he was getting knocked down. Every single time he was on his back, he was in duress, he was having to move. For how well Miller Moss has played this season, he played well in this football game too. Don't get me wrong, but man, it is not a fun life when you're dealing with that crowd and that crowd noise and getting hit every single play. So, can that defense, along with this run game, like is that good enough? Like at the end of the day, like was this just a perfect storm of events of like we're at home, backs against the wall? Everyone has to play well because we know the limitations of Alex Orgy at the quarterback spot. Like, is this truly sustainable what you saw from Michigan today?
I think it all depends on expectations. I think like if you're saying, hey, can we just get to the college football playoff? Like if that is our new national championship for this year and we're happy going 10-2, that's something to aspire for. I feel a little bit like you and I were talking about with Michael Hawkins Jr., change up pitch. There's not a lot of tape on Alex Orgy running like a full offense. USC. I mean, we talked a lot about USC and how much they improved on defense, but we go back and watch that LSU game. They're still giving up like 4.5 yards a carry. So you're still holding your breath a little bit there. I think the next couple of weeks are going to tell us a lot about Michigan with now the book being out on Alex Orgy and what they're going to do offensively. I still think they have to find some way to loosen up the box a little bit. Yes. Like I think again in the Big Ten, they're going to have too many safeties running downhill and just blowing things up, and they're going to play better D lines than USC to call a spade a spade. So I don't think it's super sustainable, but if you can evolve from this, if this is the jumping off point and we got version 2.0 and 3.0 down the line, maybe things start to trend upwards for Michigan.
I'll say this. I don't think there is a version 2.0 or 3.0, to be honest. Like I think we've seen enough of Alex Orgy to know that like there is no magical, he just needs more reps and he's going to become a better passer. He's just not a good thrower of the football, plain and simple. Like there are guys that you can watch and say like, he's got talent. There's a couple things that need to get corrected fundamentally or whatever it may be that he can develop into a good quarterback. Alex Orgy is not a good thrower of the football. Getting reps and more reps is not going to transform him into some superstar or even a what I would consider even some sort of consistent threat throwing the football. This is who they are. they're just have to grind it out and win games like this one this afternoon. So they got it done, man. That was a big win. USC, though, I'll say this, to get punched in the mouth in the first half, to not play great, but then to kind of come back, like it really, like you talk about Alex Orji not being able to transform. USC has transformed. Like I was impressed, and maybe Michigan isn't great, so maybe this loss looks even worse in 4 or 5 weeks from now. But I have a lot of respect for what USC has done to start this season and what they look like today on both sides of the football, and obviously what Miller Moss did. Like, are they a contender in the Big Ten? Like maybe some of us thought a week ago, when like, okay, is USC number 2 or 3 behind Ohio State and Oregon? Maybe not, but I still walk away saying like the Trojans are they're real this year, man.
Yeah, I think the thing I'm curious about is how do they look after this? Because I think you have some confidence after the LSU game, and you shut out Utah State, and now I think there is. I'm not saying this is going to happen. There's potential now for those guys to say, "Well, we got run on for darn near 300 yards," and kind of start to revert back. So how they're able to handle the failure as much as how they handle the success, I think is going to tell us a lot. But it's very interesting. Like this feels like a more edgy USC team than we've seen in the past. Like Miller Moss, the dude who stayed, and it looked like for all the world he was going to be having to transfer because they were going to bring somebody in, and then everyone's talked bad about USC's defense for the last feels like 3 years. Like it feels like they have a chip on their shoulder of sorts, and I think this will only add to it. I cannot wait to watch them against the Nebraskas of the world, the Penn States of the world, which I know we'll get here in October. So, yeah, I think they are evolved. How much is going to be really, really interesting when we get to those games.
Yeah, I agree. Big win by Michigan, though. I think we all sit back and say Michigan get to 3-1, 1-0 in the conference play. USC 0-1. It was pretty sweet seeing both those uniforms on the field together, though.
Oh, it was cool.
Like seeing Michigan in those unis and then USC and their unis, like probably 2 of my favorite uniforms in all of college football in a Big Ten game in Ann Arbor. Like it was weird to see it first, but then you sit back like, damn, it just looked good. It just looked good.
And the CBS broadcast too, with like the SEC on CBS Music, and you got Gary Danielson. I was like, I gotta like recalibrate my brain to all this. But once I kind of settled in, like third, fourth quarter, they were doing shots of the crowd. I was like, I can get on board with this. This is cool.
I will say this, obviously being an ESPN man, I was like, you know what? The new music we're good. It sounds great. We're all good. But in watching the game today, because this is probably my first CBS game I've watched the season, and hearing the music, I was like, oh, I miss it. I miss that jingle. Oh, I miss it. That 3:30, that totally music. Right. It's hard to get it out of our bloods as college football fans, and obviously knowing that 3:30 spot and what CBS did for a long time in the SEC.